Yeah, I think this might be a good moment to kind of step back a bit because um, I think what's interesting about Waternoose and at least the conversation of how this movie frames capitalism as well is probably how it views capitalism from probably the beginning to the middle of the movie. Because for a majority of the movie, Waternoose, as the CEO, isn't isn't a bad guy because it's really only
Mm.
until like the final third of the movie that you realize that he's the bad guy. It's basically Randall for a majority of the movie, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because in the movie they frame at least the bad side of capitalism in very subtle ways. So at least
Mm.
the first way that they do it is the fact that the very opening scene, when you see Mike and Sully, they're listening to the news, or at least the news is in the background, and you're being told that there's an energy crisis. And
Mm.
basically, that the screen factories are working nonstop to make sure that they compensate for this low energy, well, for this energy crisis. So already you can kind of see the similarities to, the fossil fuel industry, and basically an industry that is basically uh, perpetuate sorry perpetuating itself. The old Albert Einstein adage of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting a different result.
Mm.
And not only do you have that, but the whole talk around the whole talk around kids being toxic. And there's a very specific scene that I know it's played for laughs, but one of the scarers accidentally gets a sock on them, and one of the workers screams out, "Oh, it's a 2219! It's a 2219!"
Yeah.
And that's when the CDA jumps in and basically like shaves off this monster that's a monster that's naturally has fur, and then like completely decontaminates him, which is very interesting because this sort of propaganda basically influences how the state bureaucracy works. If that, I think that's a very interesting point, but also to kind of round out the trifecta is in the early stages of the movie. There's a very specific scene where Sully is speaking to um, Mr. Waternoose, and Mr. Waternoose basically says something similar to, "Oh, the new crop of scarers, they just stink. They kind of don't make scarers like they used to. Like, Sully, you're my best scarer. Why can't they be more like you and work harder?" Like he has this error to him where it sounds like, "Oh, we, oh, I wish it was the good old days," but when you actually listen to what he's saying, it has that very conservative view of, well, we're in the middle of a crisis. Why can't my workers work harder for the benefit of society, for the benefit of my profit line? Like
Mm.
it's got this very pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
You love that.
And and that is reinforced by the very fact that in the very next scene, we obviously see a typical day of how the factory works.
Yeah.
And the scarers go on the scare floor, and there's a leadership board, and they're all competing against each other to get as much screen power as they can.
Mm.
So not only are they have this kind of bourgeoisie mentality put on them of, well, you just need to work harder, you just need to be more productive, but
Mm.
also there's literally, they are competing against each other, which is a classic capitalist mindset on the proletariat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very interesting.